Hello students, today I am ready with the last concept of unit 1, that is perception and its characteristics. Students, I have decided to start your first case study of organizing behavior the very next class on this particular concept, perception. So for your information, I just like to tell you that we ensure the meaning, concept, characteristics and definition of perception well, so that you can understand the next case which will be discussed easily and you can solve and analyze it without any obstacle. So students, before understand the concept of perception today, I just like to have a brief recap on the concept what I have discussed in my last few classes. In unit 1, there are two portions. I have divided unit 1 into two. First, it is in unit 1, first portion I discussed meaning, concept, definition of organizing behavior, its nature, characteristics, scope, function, importance, and its role on the role of OB, how organizing behavior is multidisciplinary, which I discussed in first portion of unit 1. In unit 1, second portion, I discussed various core concepts of organizing behavior, including learning and its theory, motivation, Maslow's need hierarchy theory of motivation. I also discussed different personality and its feature and characteristics and factor affecting personality. And last one I just to be discussed, that has to be discussed, that is perception. So friend, before understand the concept of perception, let me tell you a brief idea what really we mean. Probably we have every time this particular concept of perception reflects in our behavior. Whatever behavior we show, whatever attitude we come up with, that is out of the perception that we develop inside. Friend, if I will give you a special symbol here, say what do you recognize by seeing this particular symbol? Anything may come to your mind. Few among you feel that sir has written something which is may have certain pictorial message, you can say. I can say that some student may feel that is nothing but something which we can say that some people among you may feel that this is nothing but a design I have just made it. Some student may think that it is something which have certain numeric value. Some may come anything you bring. Can we say that every student will think alike? क्या हर बच्चा, हर बंदा एक ही चीज सोचेगा जो मैं सोच के लिखा हूं यहाँ पे? Probably not. No. Because of our perception. Another example I can tell you. Suppose I will tell you a story. Suppose we move to a theater to watch a movie, isn't it? If we five friends, suppose we go to a theater to watch a movie, do we really get that much of interest equally? What first friend, second friend, third friend, do you feel can you evaluate how much interest they earn? How much? You definitely find some of the friend may feel excellent, some may feel it's okay, one time movie, some may think it's a nasty movie, it's a waste of money, some may feel that it's a good concept, it could be better, it is okay, wala movie. So, why this occurs? Why differentiation in opinion really occurs whenever we respond to a particular situation or condition? Same, this perception matters. If I will offer you a chocolate, every student may not raise up their hand because many of you may not like sweet. Some of you may not like sweet. They like, spicy. Some like, you can say, some like sour, khatta. People, why? Again, perception. So why we respond differently to a similar condition? It's quite common. We respond differently because we have different mindset, different psychological strength, different personality, different attitude, different belief within us. So we cannot at all expect a similar response, similar behavior for every action. So why really does it happen? I will try to explain today with help of this concept of perception. First of all, let me tell you what is perception. So first, let me make you one thing. Perception is a psychological process. It's a mental process. It's a mental exercise. What always goes in our brain? It's a mental, psychological stimuli. Mental or psychological stimuli which turn to some meaningful response. Understand? Meaningful response, meaningful information in form of our facial response. It may be in the form of our gestural response. It may be in the form of our action. It may be in the form of our way of talking. In the form of our action. Whether we accept it or reject it. Again, I just like to tell you, what if you will talk about the definition of perception. Perception is nothing but, really nothing but a psychological process, psychological gesture which lead to a meaningful response. It is a psychologically sensory process, which turn to, it means it is a procedure of, perception is a procedure of how we judge, how we receive and accept different stimulus, different factor which is residing outside, which is operating within us or within the surrounding. How an individual receive it, judge it, evaluate it and lead to any action is known as perception. In other words, perception is nothing but it's a procedure of understanding, receiving, selecting, organizing and interpreting of the sensory stimuli, which later lead to a response. So whatever response an individual, a human shows up to the environment, that is out of that the capacity of the perception he or she holds. The way he responds, it depends how he judges, how its sensory system receives, evaluate, select, organize and responds or interpret. I will discuss the perceptual process later on. Just before that, how an individual perception really occurs and how this sensory concept could be defined. As you all know that every human being possesses 5 senses, and they are ear, eyes, ears, tongue, skin. So perception is that psychological aspect which is directly linked by this sensory organ. The term perception is directly linked with all such sensory organ. Ear, what we hear. So, what perception we develop in our brain, whether to respond or to not respond, whether to receive or not to receive, whether to go or not to go, whether to love or not to love, whether to cry or not to cry. It really depends on an individual what he or she hear. It means what it appears to his sensory first, that is ear. An individual responds accordingly once he or she hear anything from the counterpart or from the environment. Understand it? So it means we sometimes we enjoy some certain song. For example, some people like to enjoy the light vocal song. Some enjoy classical song. Some enjoy modern songs. Some enjoy, some enjoy the devotional song. What does it mean? It means we accept or reject. So it depends on what our ear receives, and we respond. Individual respond to that particular song according to his taste. So you can say perception could be developed once whatever sound, whatever dialogue, whatever you can say concept that come approach to your ear. So first perception could be developed through the first sensory organ, that is ear. Second is eyes. What we see, that is even more stronger than the ear that we hear. What we hear. Eyes are human really believe on his eyes, because it is something which easily convinces the brain to receive, accept or to respond. So eyes are the, so what we watch, you can say, what we watch. So we respond well, what our brain respond very quickly once he watches the condition, the situation, the response of the counterpart. You can say that eyes is something which generate a concrete perception of every individual, whatever he or she watches, whatever response he really gets from the circumstance in the environment. So you can say eyes are the key perceptor of creating a an individual's human prospect, individual's perception. It really depends. So eyes plays quite important role. And the next it is, here I have written 2 times, sorry. Second is nose. So sometimes what we smell, these are the sensory organ. Again I am telling you, this is the sensory, this is important characteristics of perception. Very important characteristics of perception. Nose. Whatever smell, it appears to a nose. Whatever, it may be good, it may be bad. So we respond to quite well, quite actively once some smell it appears to us. It energizes our brain. It energizes our all other sensory once we smell something different or something one like. So you can say one sometime his own response. Sometimes we eat ice cream, the flavors. Every people may not looking for the same flavor. Some people look for strawberries, some people look for chocolate, some people look for, you can say, butterscotch. Why? Because sometimes people, your smell determines your taste. Smell determines your action. Understand what I am talking. So what is important in order to develop one's perception? That is the smell, the key factor which determines or decides the perception of any individual. Next is tongue, what we eat, what we taste, what we taste. It means the moment something we taste, something we eat, this leads to a kind of good response or bad response, acceptance or rejection. So sometimes whenever we develop a perception, sometimes the taste, our salivation, it decides that decides that whether to accept any dish, whether to accept, receive it positively or negatively, we should reject that. That means another perception of an individual actually decides the moment he tastes any food, the taste any any dishes that he likes or not. So another perception, another sensory organ that really decides according to the its own perception, that is tongue. Next it is the skin, what we touch, So touch does not mean touching of a person to any of the surface every time. Sometimes touch is something what we mean whenever we all other organs are inactive. That particular time touch is something which create a very good message to one's brain, and by predicting something when your eyes, your nose, your and your ear, nothing does not work well that particular time. You can predict it by touch in dark, by blinking down your eyes. You can touch anything, the surface, then you feel what is really, and accordingly you develop and design whatever you really looking forward for, whether you will accept it or you will reject it, whether you will carry on or not. It depends that the moment you touch, the moment you hold your hand, the moment you hold all the condition, and well, if your skin, your touching capacity or your skin's sensation capacity is well. Understand? Every time you can say people, example, I can say every time people like for a plain surface instead of zigzag surface, which is quite a plain surface always give healing. When you touch the smooth and plain, always attract. But if you will talk about rough, zigzag, then people, it's something what our perception is all about. One will lead to relief. Plain and smooth leads to relief, and rough and rough and zigzag pattern will give you some pain. So this is something how you develop your mindset really. Last, but apart from all such four sensory organs, there is another point which decides the perception, the social world. Social world, which again decides or develop one's perception. It means when an individual perceives another individual's behavior, which means he will use the whole sensory organ into one's as a whole, and he determines, he decides, he recognizes what kind of individual he or she, with whom he is working, with whom he is talking, with whom he or she is dealing, up to what extent his behavior is accepted or not. And sometimes one person may judge to a group of people, a team of people, wherever he is working. That is something you can say social world. One judges another individual's behavior, another individual's personality, perception, and accordingly he try to respond as per the situation demand. You can say this is something which you can say combination of all the sensory organ which help to decide the social world wherever he or she works. This is something what we mean that perception is. These are the various characteristics, feature of the perception. Next it is, we will discuss perceptual process. Every individual's perceptual process really come with 4 basic stages. We will discuss all such stages today in brief so that we will have a clear understanding. So every individual first receive, first step, perceptual process, So before responding to a condition, responding to a stimuli, responding to an individual or a situation, one come up with 4 important phases which decides and determines its response to that particular individual condition. First it is receive. First stage is receive. This is the step 1, you can say step 1, where the human being in receiving stage, always try to collect and recollect the things which is really occurring all around. जो कुछ हो रहा है उसको रिसीव करना. How to receive? Who will receive? I just told you, all the senses that you have will help you to receive. The senses like your ears, your tongue, your nose, eyes, skin, or combining of all such sensory organ will help you to receive different signal, receive different responses which is going all around. Wherever he works, wherever he really exists. Everything, everybody, those who are there around him or her, their behavior has to be received by the sensory organ of an individual. This is the first importance, where an individual first pursue the behavior of other with help of his own sensory organ. Once an individual receive the signal, receive the gesture, sound, taste and everything, then he has to select. Step 2. Step 2 is select. So whatever he receive, not necessarily that everything which come or appear in him or her, he or she will choose it, like it or respect it. Not necessary. जो कुछ घट रहा है हमारे चारों ओर, नेसेसरी नहीं को सारा चीज जो हम रिसीव किए हमारा ब्रेन, ये जरूरी नहीं कि सारा चीज वो हम लोग उसको सेलेक्ट कर ले. Not necessary that an individual will select that means like or pursue everything positively. So he definitely will like to select certain thing which his brain allows. So what I told initially, perception is completely a psychological process. It really goes in one's brain. Understand? So that's a different issue, how your brain operates. It's a biological process. I don't want to, what's a psychological procedure that I don't want to go inside. I just like to tell you, your brain accept it is selection. In selection, it's simply, you can say shortlisting. What? Shortlist. Shortlisting of different action that has been done differently in the existing circumstance and environment. Understand? So once you understand different responses all around you within the organization or within your family or within the society, whatever you receive, you have to select a few with what you really like and what you really dislike. Understand? So in selection, an individual always try to perceive the thing positively in one hand, and he will separate it, whatever things, what it is disturbing him or her. Understand? In selection stage, simply the brain separates, distinguishes that into, so you can say your perceptual signal will transformed here. Perceptual signal transformed here. Understand? Selection understood? If not, you can, in doubt clearing class, you can raise up question for your information. Next it is step 3. In step 3, you can say organizing. What in this stage, what really an individual does, or individual's brain really does, in organizing, he manages all the stimulus response that he get from the environment. That means I just told you, whatever signal he received, he persuaded, and he select few to respond, and whatever he selected, whatever things he selected to respond, before respond, all those things has to be properly organized. What is organized? Organized is nothing but it is a procedure of maintaining the sensory response, sensory perceive what your sense perceived. All those things has to be systematically synchronized, order. Understand? So whatever response he will, so he in this phase he is ready to respond. Before respond, every individual has to order, arrange, synchronize all the necessary element, grouping and dividing, ordering, all such factor which really make one's choice which will lead to an action. Understand? In organizing, he simply tries to manage the stimulus, whatever responses that he got and whatever he has been selected, all selected stimulus has to be properly arranged, organized in a synchronized way and manner. Once your organizing of the stimulus behavior that you earn, your brain organized, last it leads to step 4. Step 4 is your last but not least, that is responding or interpreting. You can say interpretation. It is a final stage of any perceptual process, because once one organizes it's all the stimulus aspect, he lastly will try to respond in the way he will interpret whatever he select and organize. He has to interpret in his action, in his behavior, in his response. What kind of response? In the form of laughing, crying, neutral, blinking down, blinking up, hearing, opening of the ear, and the activation of the ear, or to be remain cool, or you can say de-earing of any action, whether to eat or not to eat, whether to respond, not to respond, whether to anger or to not, whether to accept or not to accept, whether to create a friendship or not to create friendship, whether to giving money or not to giving money. Understand what I am talking? So interpretation is the final stage where an individual responds. It means, so here question arises that we all have a perceptual process, correct? But why our interpretation differs? I told you that every student, every among you will not ready to eat same type of chocolate or same type of ice cream. Why? Because you all have a separate, you can say, perceptual process. So whatever sensory response really give one's perceptual process receive, not necessarily everyone possesses the same symbol to receive, isn't it? That your receiving capacity differs, your receiving procedure differs, and selecting procedure also differ from one another. It depends on the status of your mental psychological prospect, the status of your brain, the status of your you can say your moral. It matter of one's moral value and principle. It differs again. So selection is also differing, and organizing. As selection, receiving is different, selection is different, organizing is different. How it will lead to a common behavioral response? It definitely leads to a separate behavior, separate response in case of different individual. What I can say, these are the perceptual process what every individual possesses, which leads to different behavior, different responses and action. So student, hope you understood what is perception, meaning, concept of perception, how it really appears, what are the characteristics, major characteristics, and what is sensory organ, and what perceptual process really every individual possesses, which leads to separating the behavior of an individual. So next class I will discuss a very good case on perception. Unit 1 here completed. If anything problem during doubt clearing class, you just consult me, interact with me, try to get all your answers, queries solved, all your queries and problem to be solved. Next class I will discuss a case on perception. Hope you understood this concept. Thank you very much for watching the video, being with me. Good luck. Take care.